Running a marathon is an amazing achievement for any human being, and what's even better than that? Running a marathon faster than you've ever done before and setting a brand new PB or PR depending on where you are in the world. And by the end of today's video, you're going to be armed with loads of tips and tricks to get you that time that you want. We're going to go through what time you should be aiming for, the sessions that help me run a 2:25 marathon, how to pace the race itself, and those all important fueling options as well, with my own recommendations for what to do. Right, let's get stuck into all of the training. How long should you give yourself to train for a marathon? Well, we'd recommend ideally around 15 weeks. That's how long all of our training plans are, which allow for a proper build-up, some recovery weeks, those all-important high mileage training weeks, and then the full taper down before race day. Our beginner plans are just a little bit longer at 18 weeks to just give new marathoners a little bit of extra time to get ready. You can check these out on my website, benpox.com. We'll link to them down below. All our beginner plans are completely free to download. During this time, you're also going to want to pick a target race to aim for. Typically, marathons are either in the spring or the autumn, as that's when the weather tends to be best for marathon running. Comment down below with your favorite races where you may already have your PB or PR to give your fellow runners some inspiration of the best races. Some of my favorites, some fast races: Valencia, Frankfurt, Berlin, Rotterdam, London, and Chicago. I think some really good options out there. So what's a realistic time to aim for your marathon? Well, there's loads of different marathon time calculators on the internet, and you can input a recent race time from a different race distance, from say a half marathon or a 10K, and that will give you a predicted marathon time based on that. Now, these aren't the most accurate way of doing things, and they usually tend to predict time slightly faster than what people are capable of, but it gives you a good of inspiration, a little bit of extra oomph to get out there and really hit the training hard. So if you're not sure, we'll link to the Jack Daniels calculator down below, as we feel that's the best one out there. But setting a goal time is going to look different for everybody. A lot of people simply just take their current time and then just chip away at multiples of 5. So if you're a 3:35 marathoner, the next logical step is sub 3:30. This is something you can adapt as your training progresses. You may want to find a goal that's a little bit faster or a little bit slower, just with how well the training is going. How far during a training week should you be running for various goal times? Someone wants to run a sub 5-hour marathon. They're looking around about 3 to 4 runs a week, up to around 30 miles in that peak week, 48 kilometers. For a sub 4 marathon, really talking again 3 to 4 runs a week, now up to around 40 miles in that biggest week, in that peak week, around about 64k for that week. For a sub 3-hour marathon, 5 to 6 runs a week, now up to around 64 miles in that peak week, just over 100 kilometers. Right, let's have a chat all about those all important long runs, arguably the most important run of the week. These are runs that are going to help build and improve your cardiovascular system and also get the body really strong to be able to run that 26.2 miles. The long runs will tend to build up progressively throughout the plan and then tap out for the longest run. Tends to be around about 3 weeks before race day, around about 20 to 23 miles or 32 to 37k for that longest run. Now, there are a few different types of long runs that we would recommend getting into your training. Again, these all feature in our marathon training plans. The first one being a fast finish long run. This might be a 20-mile total run with the first 14 miles nice and easy, relaxed conversational pace, and then the next 5 miles of that run at your marathon goal pace, and then the final mile just a nice easy cool down. This type of run is a really good marathon simulator. It gets the legs used to pushing more towards the end of your long run, gets our legs nice and tired, which is how they're going to feel towards the end of the marathon. So it's a really good race preparation type of run. The second type of long run I really like is marathon pace blocks. This is something I like to do all the time as I build up for my races. My absolute classic is a 30k long run with 3 5k blocks at my goal pace, with a 5k block between them at a nice relaxed conversational pace. Practicing marathon pace during your long runs will really help you get comfortable with what it feels like to run at this pace, and you'll be able to pace yourself so much better on the day if you spend a lot of time at your goal pace during your training. Splitting your run up into these different pace blocks I find really helps mentally with these long runs as well. And then my third type of long run I like to do in my training is simply going out for a long run and doing these just all at your ease easy pace, just banking the distance, getting a good time on feet long run. I tend to do these during my recovery weeks when I'm just trying to reduce that intensity and reduce that overall load as well. I'd also recommend, if you can, doing some of your long runs at the same time of day as your goal race starts. It just gets the body used to working at this time, and then you can practice your pre-race routine with your breakfast as well. For me, when I'm doing my long runs and also my races as well, my pre-race breakfast is pretty much always the same, of 2 bagels with some peanut butter and jam, or jelly if you're in America, and getting these down around about 2 hours to 90 minutes before go time. Practice this in training. There's absolutely no surprises on race day. It's also a really good time to think about what you want to wear on your race day as well, and wear this during your long runs and making sure everything fits together really well. What's going to be the most comfortable type of shoe, top, clothing, hat, and all of that sort of stuff for 3, 4, 5, 6+ hours potentially out there? Are those lightweight carbon racing shoes going to be the best option? People always ask me how many runs should they do in their race shoes, and I'd always say do as many as you feel you need to do to feel confident in the shoe choice that you're going to be making on the race day. Putting a brand new pair of shoes out the box on race day is very, very risky. Maybe slightly less risky if you've run in exactly that model before. It's not something I would ever do, so please don't do that. But at least just go out there, spend a little bit of time in those race shoes. For a lot of people, they're going to do a couple of their long runs in their shoes and a little warm up before the race. So you're really talking maybe like 60, 70k, and they'll be absolutely still fresh as a daisy at that sort of level, and you absolutely have confidence that they're going to get you through the race really well. Moving on to have a chat all about speed sessions. Now, in order to run a faster marathon, we need to get the body used to running faster than your goal pace, and this is where our speed workouts and our interval sessions come in. These help build our fitness to increase that aerobic capacity, your VO2 max basically, and by improving this, it improves our body's ability to deliver oxygen to the muscles. We'd recommend setting aside at least 1 run a week dedicated to your speed sessions. More experienced runners will probably want to get 2 speed sessions in per week. We'll touch on that a little bit later on. But here's some absolutely classic examples that you can try. The first one being is a progression run around about 10 kilometers of distance. The first 3k, nice and easy. Second 3k at your marathon pace, the next 2k at your tempo pace, and then 2k cooling down. My second favorite is something like a 6 by 3 minute session, running these 3-minute blocks around about your 5 to 10k pace, and just taking a 2-minute very chilled jog or walk between each of those reps. We're also going to want to build in some longer reps in here as well. Another classic that I like to do, 3 by 8 minutes at tempo pace with a 2-minute recovery between those blocks there. Again, with the recovery, it's just walking or a very, very easy jog just to get your heart rate nice and recovered. Now, a lot of people ask me, should we be doing these on a running track? Now, you can if you want to, absolutely fine. They're great places to train. I personally don't. I just rather save my money and go out and run on the roads in that sort of environment, which is just better replicating what the race is more likely to be like. But wherever you want to do them, just somewhere safe and traffic free, where you can put a drink down and get some fluids on board and some nutrition, and that's going to be absolutely fine. Now, as I touched on at the start of this section, more experienced runners might want to build in a second speed session during the week. For example, one session that focuses on short reps, like that 6 by 3 minute sessions on a Tuesday, and then a second session with a more sustained effort, something like a 20-minute tempo. They're going to have the strength in their legs and the mileage in their legs to be able to add this extra amount of intensity into the routine, which then combined with those long run sessions during those peak weeks as well, will really help build that fitness and push it up even more. Right, moving on to another absolutely classic to get in there during the week that a lot of people don't know about or they neglect, but I say it's really important in there, and that is running strides. Strides, quite simply, are bursts of around about 20 seconds of fast running at around about 90% effort. So not all out running for a bus, just below that. These really help to improve our running form and help to build some strength as well. If you're new to strides, I'd recommend doing something like 3 to 4 reps of this. More experienced runners, anything up to around 6 or 7 reps of this, with just a very easy jog or walk in between these strides. Right, let's have a chat about easy runs. Now, the rest of our week is going to be made up of running at a nice, relaxed, easy run pace. The speed sessions, the long runs, will put a lot of stress on the body. quickly, and so that's why we're now running at a nice low intensity. If every day was a speed session, we would get injured pretty quickly. Now, what I recommend for your easy run paces for a sub 5 hour sort of goal target, we're talking around about 11:40 to 12:45 a mile. Sub 4 runners going to be doing their easy runs around about 10 minutes a mile to 11 minutes a mile. Sub 3 hour runners around about 7:50 to 8:40 minutes a mile. Right, let's have a quick chat about strength work, which is a crucial part of any training plan, especially important for people doing the marathon, and even more important for some older runners. We're recommending 1 day a week to this, and of course more is great as well. But as a minimum, add something like this to a current day of easy run training, and keep your rest days as rest days. That's really, really important to let your body recover and adapt during those rest days. Now, we have a strength training routine, which is part of our training plans, which you can add on, but it's just the very basics we'd recommend getting in a routine: squats, bridges, lunges, and planks. Get that into your routine, and it's going to help your running so much. Now, race day is here. We want to think about what we're going to be doing during the race. How are we going to pace it? So many runners make this mistake of going out too fast and blowing up. So having a pacing plan is really important. For me, there's 2 different ways of pacing a marathon. Either start slightly slower than your goal pace and then speed up as the run goes on. This requires a lot of patience and control, which a lot of runners really do struggle with. Alternatively, and what I personally aim to do, is simply set off at my goal pace and hold that all the way through. And the final few Ks, just try and pick up the pace a little bit more to come in just ahead of my goal time. Now, this of course will depend on the course you're doing, what the route's like. If it's hilly, you might need to save some energy for certain hillier parts of the course. Going out hard and banking that time really works. There'll be a few examples of people that have managed to set new PBs and PRs by doing that. But I'd always say you probably could have gone faster if you pace it a little bit better and start nice and slowly. What I recommend is using the lap pace on your watch, which if you have your laps turned on, will then reset every kilometer or every mile, and just stick to that pace throughout the race. Now, if you've got some bad GPS issues on the course, such as Canary Wharf through London or at the start of the Chicago Marathon, you don't have to worry about this too much because, as I say, it resets all the time. You just keep clocking with your watch, looking at that lap pace as you go on. Also, if there are any paces during the event, then you can look out and try and run with them, run in some of the pacing groups. Most of these pace groups are really, really good. I think in the recent New York Marathon, for example, 95% of the pacers achieved their goal time and helped all the thousands of runners out there achieve their goal times as well. Right, moving on, let's have a chat about fueling. How are we going to fuel the race? This is what sets the marathon apart from so many other races. With 5Ks, 10Ks, and even up to half marathon distance, really, you can get away with not really fueling much or at all during these races. But with the marathon, you cannot do that. So it's really important to fuel regularly throughout the race. A mistake a lot of runners make when running the marathon is they wait till they get tired before they start taking on some fuel. And by that point, it's far too late and you can't recover from it. So what I recommend as a rough guide is 30 grams of carbs around about every 35 to 45 minutes, and do this from the start. Now, of course, as with all things running, it's going to vary a little bit from person to person. So we always stress to practice this during your long runs to find out the quantities and the timings that work well for you. And there's also so many different products, so many different gels, natural gels, so many different types of things you can try during your training, all with different amounts of carbohydrates in them as well, different textures, different flavors. So it's really important to find out what works for you. We do have a huge gel taste test comparison video to give you some ideas. We'll link to that down below as well. So maybe have a check out of that if you're looking for some new ideas of some gels that you want to try out. Now, for hydration, you'll likely have drinks available every few miles on the course, but look this up beforehand. All of the big majors and the big races will have drink stations at a bare minimum of every couple of miles. Most of them is every single mile out there. I'd always say drink little and often. If you're thirsty, have a drink. It's very hard to have an exact game plan of trying to get a certain amount of liquid down. For me, I just run through a water station. If I'm feeling thirsty, I'll try and get something down and then carry on. Now, if you are feeling a bit dehydrated and you need to stop and walk to get get some water down, that's absolutely fine. Make sure you get that water down. Sometimes it is really hard running through these things and trying to get a cup and get it down you. But as I say, if you need to stop for a few seconds just to get it down, make sure there's no one running up down behind you. You're going to block someone all of a sudden. Just get that down and then carry on running. Now you may want to use a hydration vest to keep some liquids on you and your gels as well, or any other valuables during your long runs and also potentially during your race as well. A lot of people like to do this just so they know they've got absolutely everything on them and they're going to be okay. They don't have to rely on anybody else out there. Maybe they've got some special drinks or things like that. Again, I would say not every race allows you to have a hydration vest, but the vast majority do. So just make sure you double check. For me, when I'm doing my long runs, I usually just simply like to just leave a bottle under a bush, come in, grab that, down the drink, get a gel on board as well, and then carry on. Just takes about 30 seconds out of my long run just to make sure I'm getting that fuel on board. Right, a couple more things to chat about. The next one being recovery during our training. Sleep is so important. This is when our body is going to be making those adaptations to become that faster runner we want it to be. Most likely you're going to be feeling a little bit tired anyway, so just keep checking with yourself, see how you feel, try and get as much sleep as you possibly can. For a lot of people, after their runs, they're going to want to get a nice recovery shake on board, something with a good mix of carbohydrates and proteins. Something like a 3-to-1 mix is pretty standard. Yeah, getting something like that down within that 30 minutes after your run is a really good thing as well. And making sure you're doing a really good solid warm up with some dynamic stretches, easing into all of our runs before we head out, and then some static stretches after our run just to look after ourselves. The last thing I want to have a chat about is just talking to those around you about what you're doing. Communicate with your friends and family. Adding this whole new thing into what is probably already quite a busy schedule can be quite a stressful thing. Chat to people, let them know how you're feeling. If you've got any injuries and pains, get some advice. It's no problem at all just to cross-train for a few days just while they die down. I absolutely guarantee that everybody training for a marathon will have some sort of minor injury thing to deal with during their training block. Yes, it's quite stressful, but get some helpful advice. Look up some advice on YouTube. Ideally, get to see someone, a physio or a sports massage therapist in person if you can. Running a marathon is an incredibly amazing thing to do. Also a very hard thing to do. So give yourself a pat on the back for taking time to do some research to improve yourself, because no doubt you're going to have an amazing time out there. As I say, running a marathon is hard, but it feels so good when you cross the finish line knowing that you've had a really good run out there. And if you need a little bit more guidance on your training, then check out the marathon plans down below on benparks.com. The next video coming up is my full 24 hours before race day complete guide and my ultimate guide to long runs as well. Take your pick from one of those videos. That's it, guys. Keep on working hard. Keep on it done. Let me know how you get on in your race, and we'll see you in the next one.